All right, I think we're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Coastal Conversations with a Better Glen, and we're going to have a discussion today focused around the issues and the questions that we'll be voting on this November, and actually starting tomorrow, which is when early voting starts. I am Laura Karana. I'm a member of A Better Glen, and maybe we can take a minute just for everyone to go around and introduce themselves who's on the line today. You want to start? Go ahead, Bobby. Introduce yourself.
Bobby Henderson, co-founder of A Better Glen. Most people know me. Go ahead, Jason.
My name is Jason Hagan. I work for the Glenn County Board of Commissioners. I am responsible for ensuring that projects come through to completion. And so as SPLOST is coming up, that will be one of the that would be one of my major areas of focus. So, and then we've got Vinny, who's our fire chief, and we've got Lisa Gerganis, who's our recreation and parks director. Go ahead, chief, or Lisa, whoever's up there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vinny DeCristofalo. As Jason said, I'm serving as the interim fire chief for Glenn County Fire Rescue. I'm happy to be here tonight to take part in this conversation.
Ganis, I'm the Recreation and Parks Director, and happy to be here.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I think maybe it would help to kind of just set the context and about what we're going to be talking about tonight. I think one of our main issues is going to be the SPLOST question that will be on the ballot this November. And just to kind of remind everybody of what SPLOST is and the recent history around SPLOST. So it was on the ballot last year in March 2021. That vote failed. And there has been a lot of reworking of the project list. There has been a lot of public input, and it is on the ballot again this November. So in terms of going through sort of the basics of what SPLOST is, I think we can just kind of hit those topics. So it's basically a 1% sales tax on all purchases made in Glenn County. So if the SPLOST passes the vote in November, this 1% would be added to any purchases made in Glenn County. The revenue that's collected from that tax is used for infrastructure projects in the county. So that includes things like roads, sidewalks, building projects, things like that need to be maintained or built in the county. The SPLOST that is on the ballot for this year would go for 6 years. So this tax would be added to our sales tax for 6 years. And we have now project lists from the county, from the city, from the Joint Water and Sewer Commission, from the Jekyll Island Authority, from the Economic Development Authority, and the Airport Commission. I think I got all those parties right. They have all worked together on projects that they feel, infrastructure projects that they feel are important, that would be funded by this tax, and have finalized those lists now with public input. And so that's what's going to be on the ballot this year. I think one thing so the context is that SPLOST was on the ballot last year. It failed. It's now on the ballot again. And I think one question that a lot of voters have is what's different from last year to this year. You know, some of the criticisms that folks had last year were that the project list did not have any kind of formal public input. There was no way for folks to really provide input on what projects they thought were important. And also, I think there's a little bit of hesitation in the public around how the last SPLOST has been managed and how transparent that has been, how easy it's been to get information about those projects and how quickly they've been accomplished. So maybe what we can do, that's kind of a broad overview of where we are now, the kind of recent history around SPLOST. Maybe what we can do is maybe start with Mr. Hagan and talk about your current responsibilities in terms of the projects in for SPLOST 2016 and what you would what your responsibilities would be for the SPLOST 2020 project.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Laura. So current responsibilities as we look at 2016, we've still got a few that are outstanding projects. And so what I'm doing now is I've taken the reins overseeing the project managers, and we're having weekly to bi-weekly meetings just to figure out where we are with each project. What are we doing? Who do we need to talk to drive the ball? Is it that we need to get design work done? Is it that we need to get construction work done? Whatever it is, we're identifying that so that we can, set those goals and be driving towards something, and make progress towards it. That's been the thing that we haven't had in the past, is someone just to drive it. And so this is a newly created position that I'm in right now. Part of this, I was the procurement officer for the county, and so I've got a lot of procurement experience. I watch every dollar that's spent, and I feel like I'm a good steward of the county's money, and I want to make sure that I'm also a taxpayer, so I want to make sure that we're doing right by the people in these projects, and not spending money just to spend money. And so my goal is to get out there ahead of SPLOST 2022, let people know that we're here, we're watching these things, that we've got a project list that are our needs, that we feel like the county needs to do. These aren't wants, these are needs, and that you've got someone that's going to be watching them and providing quarterly updates on where we are with each of these projects. So does that answer your question, Ms. Laura?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned that your position is a newly created one. So when was it created? How long have you been working in this position? And how were the SPLOST 2016 projects managed before this position was created?
Sure. So I've been with the county since October 2020. And so prior to me coming in, each department had their projects and they managed their projects accordingly. So we've got staff engineers that head up these things, and it's not that they were not doing a good job, but it was just that there were a lot of things going on, and maybe they would miss something or another. But now I'm here to provide that oversight and work with these engineers so that we can provide those quarterly updates. We're also looking at software systems that we can purchase that would be able to put on our website, that would show graphics on where we are as far as money coming in, money going out, where we are with project completion, so that there's no question on where a project is, at what stage in the project. People would be able to log on and see what's going on. So so to your question, how long has this position been around? So we just hired Bill, about 4 months ago. This position was at Pletsy, and Mr. Fallon saw value in this position, and so he wanted that position to be here as well, and so he created it, and he put me in that position.
Okay, so that's something that Bill Fallon, the current county manager, implemented basically when he came in.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Jason, just to follow up on some of the things that you talked about in management of the 2016 projects, from when you came in to where you are now, two things. Why do you think there were the difficulties that there were to prevent the 2016 projects from getting completed? And from where you took over to now, what have you seen as far as the progress of those projects?
Well, I think a lot of people sometimes forget so for 2016, we don't actually start collecting the money until 2017. And so we start collecting money in 2017. We start doing projects. You know, you've got we've got like 4 projects that we are still outstanding. Now, during that same time, we've got, and I don't want to make excuses. We own it. You know, we should have gotten these things done, but I will say, during this time, there was a COVID, there was a pandemic. You know, there was a shortage of items. We all saw that, and so when, just as anyone going to buy something, you know, it could be tubing, it could be construction material, it could be anything. There are shortages out there, and again, I don't want to make excuses for these things. It is what it is, and we got to deal with it and keep on moving. And that's what we're trying to do now. At the same time, there's a lot of money out there from grants that are just flooding the market, and the construction companies that are out there are pretty much gainfully employed with a lot of different projects. And so we have seen instances where we are putting jobs out to bid, and then we don't receive a response for those postings. Now, to combat that, we're going out to more websites that are procurement type websites. We post on the Georgia Procurement Registry. We're also looking at posting in a Jacksonville registry and into a South Carolina registry, so we can get more attention to the projects that we've got. It's not that we don't want to do these projects or that we're just moving slow. It's that we're trying to find people to get the job done. So, and that's another part of my job now, is to, you know, every part from the posting the job, or are we getting the job out, working with the current procurement officer, Resin Talbert, to, you know, making sure that the RFPs or the IFPs are all written in a way that are easy to respond to, that we don't have too many hoops for these people to jump through to be able to respond to our bids. We're doing everything we can to work with people and be an easy customer to people.
Jason, can you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned that you're planning to have quarterly updates is that for SPLOST 2016 projects and 22 projects, and what will those look like? What's the format of those updates?
For 2016 projects, we're actually doing monthly updates. And so this Tuesday coming up at the Board of Commissioners work session, I'll provide an update on where we are with these projects. And we'll continue to do that on a monthly basis. But going into, if the SPLOST 2022 does pass, we'll do a quarterly update. The way I see that is we'll have the list, we'll have money that's collected, where we are in the process is if we're putting out RFPs for design work, or if it's an IFP to get construction work, and then if we are in a phase where construction is taking place, where in that phase are we, so that people see what's happening. I want to try to take out the wonder, you know, as I know for me personally, when I drive down the street and I think, I wonder what's happening right there. I want to be able to put something out there so that it's almost a map, working with our GIS folks, a map of where these projects are and easily identified, so that people will say, oh, that new sidewalk, that's a SPLOST project. Okay. So to give you an example, the project on Harry Driggers, we've got a sidewalk from 17 up to, I think, Needwood, and then from Golden House Parkway back up to Canal. So, I mean, as people see that new sidewalk or run that new sidewalk, I'd like for them to think, oh, this was a SPLOST project. This is my SPLOST dollars at work. So, you know, I think it's important that people realize that the county is taking their money and investing it in things that provide for a better life for the citizens here. I
think that transparency and information sharing is really important, and it helps folks see the impact of their vote. And one thing that I've noticed is different from last year is that the county website has a lot more information about current SPLOST projects, 2016 projects, and about the project list for 2022. So is that something that you plan to continue updating and kind of building out?
Well, I've got to give a lot of credit to, for a very long time, we didn't have a communications director. And so now we've hired Katie Bassan, and she's our communications director. Katie is just flooding social media and our website and making sure that if there's a piece of information that can be shared, she's sharing it, from dogs being adopted to projects that we're doing. And it's funny, I laugh with Katie sometimes because she shares so much and she gets so excited about it. And sometimes it's the happiest thing, and yet it will still receive negative criticism. And I'm like, I don't want her to get discouraged. I'm very glad that she's here and getting these things out there, and I want her to continue to do it. But if you see our social media, I don't know that people really appreciate that we're trying to just do a good job and to be a good county staff. You know, these staff members, they're not elected positions. They're people that come to work every day. They work hard, and they go home, they work here, they play here. And, you know, these people, they want a better community just like you do, you know? So Katie is going to continue to post these things and share information. And if there's something that you feel like she's not sharing, if you ask her or text her, she'll get it out.
Jason, if it's any consolation, as a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, we receive our fair share of criticism on our social media as well.
There you go.
Yeah. We are starting to get some questions to come in from Facebook, but I have one before we get there. Chief, as an integral part of public safety here in Glenn County, can you speak to how SPLOST 22 can have an impact on public safety?
Yes, sir. So our Tier 1 SPLOST project, proposed project with the SPLOST, is acquisition and construction of our 9th fire station, which would be, it's proposed to be in the area of the spur, Golden Isles Parkway. The reason this is being driven to that area is that area is covered by our Station 1, the Ballard Street station. That station right now is running right around 35% of our total call volume. So we've seen the need as Glenn County has grown and moving away from the Brunswick city limits over the decades. We would build stations where land was available, but not really paying attention to how the population growth and density was being planned within the county. And it's a issue that a lot of older communities are faced with. Of you put a fire station here in this area where we have this piece of property, but the population growth and the call volume growth is moving away from that over the decades. So with emergency medical services and fire services, our entire service is based on time, and the sooner we can get units to an area, to your emergency, the sooner we can start to mitigate it, whether it's a medical issue or a fire issue or a rescue issue. The quicker we can get there, the more successful it's going to be an outcome for the person involved, the county, and the fire department all together. With that station, also what happens with Station 1 is every time a call happens to that area over at the Golden Isles Parkway, we now have an abandoned station, which causes, when the next call comes in there, because that station's response area is so busy, we have to pull a unit from another station. So now we're leaving another area of the county uncovered. So using this, the SPLOST monies, if successful, and being able to acquire the land, build the site, and then get the apparatus there will improve the overall, at least from the EMS and fire side, the public safety of the Glenn County residents.
Thank you.
Laura, do you see Rachel's first question?
Yeah, we got some questions coming in about the bid process on Facebook. So are there restrictions on accepting bids if only one bid has been received? How do you maintain a competitive bidding process to keep costs low?
So when we go to post a bid, it's posted on the Glenn County site. It's posted on the procurement registry. We also post these bids downstairs in the forum of the tape building. And so we keep these out for 30 days in an attempt to get as much attention to them as possible. Now, there are times that we get no bids. There are times that I'll get one bid response. And if I get one bid response and it's a number that exceeds the budget that we've got for that project, we will reject it most times and then redo the scope and then put it back out. You know, behind every bid, behind every project, there's a budget, and we try to stay within budget. Now, what we're finding is that with inflation the way it is, things are coming in more expensive than what has been than what it was budgeted for. And so if it's a project that absolutely needs to get done and it's only a small amount above budget, well, then we might take that to the Board of Commissioners and say, this is, here's what it came in at. What do you want to do? Do we want to reject it or do we want to accept it? You know, the Board of Commissioners has ultimate decision-making authority on every single contract that we have. So they're either going to say, you know what, put it back out, or let's go with it. I've seen them go both ways.
As a follow-up to that question, the regeneration of those SPLOST dollars here locally, with bidding being as broad as it has to be now, like you said, with those grant dollars flowing as heavily as they are, how do you encourage more local businesses, more local companies to get in on that bidding process?
Well, we had not too long ago, we had an open house for contractors where we invited contractors to come in and we would walk through the paperwork with them to answer any questions. I've also had a lot of one-on-one meetings with contractors. Commissioner Booker had me speak at at one of his business meetings. I think it was Black Professional Business Meeting on Gloucester a few months back, where I just went through the documents that are included in a bid response to make sure that everyone understands that. So, I mean, we do quite a bit of community outreach to make sure that people understand what we're asking for. We've also gone back to the Board of Commissioners and asked them to relax some of the requirements for bonding so that more people can respond to these bids. You know, if it's a small business, sometimes they don't have the funds to go out and get a large bond. And so we recognize that. We try to make it as easy as possible for people to respond. And then we also have question and answer sessions with every single bid, so that if there's a question about something, they can email us, we email them back, we post the questions. So I don't know what more we can do, but if there is something that we can do, we will do it.
Just to clarify, because you mentioned bonding requirements, for folks who may not know what that is or what that means, can you explain
Sure.
that?
So there's different forms of bonds. There's performance bonds. There's bid bonds. What a bond does is, if there's a project and it's an insurance policy to reduce risk to the county, and so if the project's worth $120,000 we'd ask that contractor to take out a bond worth whatever the price of or the value of the contract would be. That way, if halfway through the project, if the vendor decides that he can't do it or he becomes insolvent, well, then we can still call on the bond and then recoup our money. It's an insurance policy, and it keeps us. It reduces the risk to the county.
Great, that's helpful. I think so. We heard from the Durham Fire Chief about one of the big projects on the project list for 2022 and how that was added thoughtfully, looking at the data and when and where calls are coming in and where a new station is most needed. I wonder if we can turn to Ms. Gerganis and if you can let us know a little bit about the thought process that went into the Parks and Recreation project list for 2022.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Bobby. So there's a lot of Recreation and Parks projects on the SPLOST 22 list. Ones that are there are items that had been requested through the capital budget process, obviously, that were not chosen funded in the fiscal year, capital budget, regular budget. And so because of that, then they became items that were considered to be added to the Ballot Park project. Includes demolition of the tennis courts that are there. They're in poor shape, and they have been a good year or two, a lot of cracks in them. And so in the budget process, we'd asked for consideration to get money to demo those and then do something different at that site, where there be a playground or some open green, something like that. And so so that project, the Demery project, Selden Park, all of those initiated through the fiscal year process, and without having the funds in that source to be able to be done, they were considered and added to the SPLOST list.
So we know part of the lost negotiation was the transfer of Parks and Rec back to the city, their portion of holdings that were moved a few years ago. Has that factored into the project list at all?
Well, no, actually, it hasn't. Howard Coffin Park is the city park that the county has since 2013, and during that time, over the last 10 years, with the lost negotiation and the arrangement, the city continued investments into that park above a certain dollar amount. So so they are in to take that park back over. Glenn County will still be managing Recreation and Parks Station anymore, so the city will be taking that back. It really wasn't a factor in the SPLOST project list.
Right, and if I can add to that, Bobby, the Selden Park will continue to be managed by Glenn County, at Lisa's team.
Understood.
So I have a question about one of the biggest single line items on the project list for the county, which is the public safety multi-use facility for emergency operations. Can you guys talk a little bit about what that project would be, why it's needed, and how it arrived on the project list?
Right. So there's a couple different facets to this one. Number one, it provides for a place. It's at the highest, I think it's at like 30 feet above sea level, one of the highest places in the county, so that if we have an event such as a hurricane, we've got a place for all of our first responders, our public works leadership, our police leadership. It's a place where we can all go and manage from that spot. It's also going to be a place where we have a shelter for, I think we've got, we're looking at about 24,000 square feet, a 3-level building. The first level would be a shelter. for people to come in to be there in the event that there was a hurricane or some other type of disaster. The other thing is we'll house our data, our IT data storage will be in that same building. So it'll serve many different purposes, as it says. It's a multi-purpose building, but the idea is that, so right now, when there's a hurricane, we all pile in to the building. It's the police station over at in the area where right off of the spur. And at nighttime, or when people sleep, the guys go and they'll sleep in the attic, and the women will go and sleep. I think some of them sleep in a hotel, some of them may sleep near the 911, but it's just a hodgepodge, and it's not very organized, and it's very cramped, and we need to do better than that. We can do better than that. We need to have an area where people can take a shower, can regroup a little bit, and then get back into it. These issues, they're happening. Hurricanes happen, and so when the EOC gets activated and people are there for long periods of time, we want to try to make them as comfortable as they can, because they're the ones that are making decisions for the county, and so I feel like this is something that, again, I go back to the needs and wants. This is a need. This is it's a space where we can oversee what's happening, communicate with law enforcement and first responders, and make decisions to get people where they need to be.
So if we build a dedicated building for the Emergency Operations Center to when they activate for emergency situations, is there a plan for how that building will be used the other 95%, 98% of the time when we're not in an active emergency situation?
Oh, sure. I mean, there'll be meeting spaces over there. We'll move, like I said, IT will move part of their operations over there. So it'll be a building that's actively being used. It's not going to be dormant. There'll also be training going on over there. I know Chief and both Chief DiCristofalo and Chief Batiste will have easy access to that building so that they can provide training with law enforcement and fire department personnel.
So everybody's heard, some of us have even said about island investments, with SPLOST being, it gives the impression that it's lopsided, island versus mainland. Especially with regard to how projects on the island have been completed and haven't been stagnated as the ones on the mainland seem that they have. And of course, this SPLOST is going to have a significant investment in infrastructure on St. Simon's Island. Again, can you speak to how, one, how that figure and those projects are determined, and two, how mainlanders benefit? Because we know we have a lot of mainlanders that actually work over on St. Simon's Island. We have a lot of teachers and doctors and people who serve the mainland that live on the island. They're Glenn County residents as well. So can you speak to how those projects actually have a mutual benefit for islanders and mainlanders?
Robbie, I'm so glad you asked that question, because and as you said, that intersection of Sea Island Causeway and Dimmery and Kingsway, coming off the causeway, that project, I would argue, is just as much for people of Brunswick as it is for the people of St. Simon's. And why do I say that? Well, I live on St. Simon's. When I leave for work in the morning, and I try to be out the door a little bit after 7, and I'm coming down the causeway, it's an easy ride for me. but it's not easy for the folks that are coming onto the island. It's traffic that's backed up, sometimes all the way back to where that marina is and beyond. So those people, they're not coming to the island because they live there. They live in Brunswick or somewhere else, and they're coming to the island because they work on Sea Island, or they're coming to do some type of construction job or whatever type of job they're doing, but they're sitting in traffic, and it's nauseating. I look at that, and if we can get this flyover, this roundabout, this intersection figured out, it's going to help those folks. And then in the afternoons, when I go home, in the evenings, as I'm going back over to St. Simon's, it's the folks that are heading off the island. That's where the traffic is. So it's like, yeah, all the way down Demery and Sea Island Causeway. If this goes in, it's going to make their lives a lot easier. So I would argue that that's just as much a mainland project as it is a St. Simon's project. So yeah, I'm glad you asked that. What was the other part of your question, Bobby? I want to make sure I answer it completely.
I think that was it. Just explain how. The other part was the thought process that went into developing that project list for the island, and how those funds were calculated for those projects.
Gotcha. Thank you. So going into this SPLOST, we started off with we went out to the community, and in the form of town halls, and we asked people a lot of questions. I personally went to Commissioner Booker's town halls. I went to Commissioner Findig's town halls, and we just asked people and listened to what they said. What is it that you want? The commissioners also received feedback from their constituents. And then the other thing that we did was we had a survey that went out, and we did have response to that. And so, I mean, we tried to get as much input as we could to figure out what were the needs of the county. And so from that, we made a very long list, extensive list. And then we went through and said, all right, this is important. This is, we can do this, we can do that. And then while this is going on, we are also in communication with the folks at City of Brunswick and the Airport Authority and Joint Water Sewer and Jekyll Island, because we want to also make sure that they get taken care of. We want to make sure that whatever projects they have, whatever needs they have, that they get funding to do that. And so City of Brunswick, they've got a list of items that are really important to them to get done, to us to get done. I live here. I'm at the Pate Building right now, so I'm in downtown Brunswick. The things that happen in downtown Brunswick affect me. And so I want those projects to happen. So, we go through this list, we scrub it, and we try to identify those things that are going to make the most impact for the people. And, that we arrived at the current list as it is right now to put forth and ask the voters to give us a shot on.
So talking about public input a little bit, I think just as a private citizen, it was encouraging to see the survey that was sent out in the spring, to see the number and quantity of town halls that the commissioners hosted, and the number of opportunities they gave citizens to speak up, to ask questions, to provide their input. I'm wondering if I think it would be helpful to understand how all that public input basically, informed the current project list. Was there anything that you heard from people during that process that surprised you, that ended up on the list, or was there anything that you heard that caused you to take something off the list that you had originally put on the list? I think that would help people understand how impactful their input really is.
Well, I will tell you, Ms. Laura, the one thing that was probably the biggest surprise to me was the Juvenile Justice Center. And the reason I say that is most people don't get the opportunity, thankfully, I think, to see what our current juvenile court looks like. It's a small building that's over on Gloucester. It shares a building with drug court. You've got child inmate or children that are very close to drug offenders, and it's difficult for Sheriff Jump to keep these people apart. And there's an opportunity for bad things to happen. And Sheriff Jump has been adamant that we've got to do something. And he has championed a new courthouse, a new juvenile justice center. He's told us about this for a long time, and you know, Judge Scarlett also has been able to come and speak to what the needs are. And as a community, we heard that the community didn't feel like that should be put onto a SPLOST. Now, if I'd had my way, I would have said that's a government building, and that's something that we could put on a SPLOST and get paid for. But you know, people didn't want that. There was this idea that our courthouse would be used by people from other communities, and for whatever reason, we don't want to do that. And that wasn't even true. I mean, if you go down there, and I challenge anyone to do it, take a few days or take an hour and go down to Gloucester and see what the current situation is. And God forbid you do have a child that has to go through our juvenile court right now and just see what it is. It's not a good situation, and we owe our kids more than that. And you know, I've been blessed. My kids have never had any problems. They've never had a reason to go, but there are people that do. And you know, as a county, we've got to be able to provide better, safer conditions for these people. So we took it off the SPLOST list, and we are going to we're going to figure out a way to pay for that through just general funds. So we did. We listened to what the community said. Another thing that we heard loud and clear was that the roundabout on St. Simon's, people didn't feel that should be on a SPLOST list. It was a political hot button. And so we took that off. So, I mean, we try to listen. We try to put things on that we feel that would get support of the voters, and we take things off that, even though we know we need these things as a community, if we didn't feel that we would get the support from the community, we took it off.
I think that does speak to a humility that wasn't present in the attempt to get a SPLOST passed last year, because the community didn't really feel like they were being listened to. I think that there were some liberties being taken in an attempt to get a SPLOST passed in 2021 that really set up a hard sell for 2022 SPLOST. But I think that selling point, that the county government is actually listening to what's being asked, what's being told, what's being asked, and they're making adjustments to use the dollars that we're trusting you to use in the capacity that we are trusting you to use them. So I will say bravo, Zulu, for that. Really appreciate your transparency in that, and hopefully we can continue to keep that same energy as we move forward through this election season. Tell the people your story about how humbling it was to have to take those things off, even feeling so strongly about them.
I will. I appreciate that, Bobby. And again, I challenge people, just drive down there and take a look at these things. You know, we get so much negative criticism about some of the things that we ask for, but these really are needs, Bobby. And I don't know if you've ever had a chance to see some of these things, but I hope you haven't, but for the people that have seen them, I know they'll appreciate what we're doing.
So we talked a little bit about public input and the formation of the project list. I have a question that's more around accountability and transparency. I think one of the sore spots in the community from the 2016 is that the collections didn't stop when they were supposed to. And I think that really eroded the trust of voters in either the capacity or the intentions of our local government. So what are your plans to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, so Laura, as far as once the amount has been collected on a SPLOST, then we notify a governing committee. Then the SPLOST funds continue to get collected until, and I want to say it's like 3 months after the fact, and I'll get that exactly how it works for you. But I know that we notified the state that we had collected the amount of funds that we had, but there's a process to then turn off everything that's been turned on, and it takes a little bit of time. It's not that, you know, Glynn County was trying to take more than we asked to take. It was that we were just trying to, we've asked it to be turned off, and until it actually happens, the money keeps getting collected. And I'll find out exactly how long that was so that I can provide that to you, but we weren't trying to collect more.
Okay, so you're saying maybe it's more of a misunderstanding of the process or miscommunication about the process rather than somebody forgetting to send an email to stop the collections or something like that.
No, I mean, as soon as we hit the mark, it was, we let the oversight, the governing committee, whoever that is, up in Atlanta know that, hey, we hit our number, and then it's on them to then turn it off down here. So going forward, that there's always the possibility that could happen, but I promise, you know, as soon as we hit that our number, we go to turn that off again. And what we plan to do is show people through a graphic display on our website how much money is being collected every month, so everyone knows. I mean, we've heard people loud and clear that transparency is needed, and you know, I get that, and that's what I want to do. I want to know myself. All right, how much has been collected? And so it's a dashboard that you come in, and every morning you can see you know, we've collected this much, and we plan to spend this much. So I think that these tools that we're investing in, I think that's going to be very helpful for people, and it's going to also allow people to ask questions. I'm trying to partner with people in the community that I hear ask a lot of questions at the Board of Commissioners meeting. You know, one of the guys, I don't want to mention him by name, but he's always got a lot of criticism, and so I want to know from him, what is it that we can do better? If we're doing something wrong, tell me so that we can figure out how to do it better. And you know, I'm trying to form relationships, not just with the people that pat us on the back, but with the people that think we've got opportunities to do better, so that we can figure out things and do these in a way that makes sense to everyone.
We did get a
Laura?
comment on. We did get a comment on Jason, your explanation on the Juvenile Justice Center, and I want to talk specifically about programming. We understand the connection between youth sports activity and pulling people away from those things that would lend them to the criminal justice system. Lisa, the projects that are on the docket for the 2022 SPLOST, how is it that you guys intend to formulate programming around creating more access, easier access to the programs that you guys are offering using the 2022 SPLOST?
Well, so there are several parks projects on SPLOST. It's Ballot Park. Again, it's taking an unusable facility and it's in its current state and trying to put some money into it to make it a usable facility that the kids could use, people ages could use. Selden Park, adding some, the trail that's there, possibly expanding the buildings. That's what the Selden Park monies would do for that facility. Any expanded facilities would be, usable, programmed for the community. At Demery, there's some restrooms that are needed for the athletic that are played at that facility. Restroom facilities, simple park and recreation facilities. So, the recreation and parks we do, just anything that we could do to enhance this through improved facilities, I think is a good thing to hopefully get more kids out and about and playing. Can I mention one thing?
Lisa, you're breaking up just a little bit, but you said you wanted to mention
Just
one
want a
thing?
comment regarding the conversation about the extension of the sales tax. Yeah, my connection's terrible. I'm sorry, but thinking about as an example at Blythe Island Regional Park, we have there that charge sales tax. Whenever that collection ended, we had to physically go and make some alterations and some configuration changes to our system so that 1% sales tax was no longer going to be collected. And thinking about this community and this, in general, if one and change some settings on their systems to no longer 1%, I think about all the Friendly's gas stations and Parkers and all those that would potentially have to do something physically, staff person go in there and make those correct. I'm sure that's very challenging once they set that date for collections to end for all these businesses that charge that extra tax.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Well, I don't see any other comments coming in. Bobby, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just public safety is very important to me as a citizen. I grew up in the city of Brunswick. I've lived in Glenn County since I've come back for 22 years. Actually, today is my work anniversary that brought me back to Glenn County. So, and the multi-use facility and the hurricane, we actually had to put facilities in at my job for emergency use. So the comments that Chief made about getting to calls quicker, I don't think that it can be taken lightly that translates into saved lives, saved property, saved money. And as a person that works around the Ballard station house, there's a truck rolling out of there far more than I've ever seen it in my life. It seems like every time I go by there's a truck rolling out. So Chief, if you would just kind of speak to those things just a little bit more for anybody that came in late, and how public safety is going to be positively impacted by SPLOST 2022.
Sure, no problem. So as discussed at the beginning, the fire department's fire rescue's tier 1 project is land acquisition and construction of a new fire station, which would be Glenn County Fire Rescue's 9th fire station. And as Bobby said, that that Ballard Street Station, Station 1, our oldest station, borders right on the Brunswick border. So as our area has started to expand over the decades, moving away from the Brunswick city limits and getting out into the county areas, what we've discovered there is that that response zone that station on Ballard covers is much too large and too populated at this point now to provide effective and efficient fire rescue response. So that means emergency medical services and your fire and any rescue services coming from Glenn County Fire Rescue. All you have to do is drive down the spur and drive down Chapel Crossing or any of the crossroads, and you can see the development going in, the huge apartment complexes going in all over the county. And, you got to kind of figure that every apartment inside those is 2.5 additional people coming into Glenn County, and they're going to have emergency and fire rescue services at one time they're going to call and it's going to be needed. So through data and incident report analysis, going back over a 5-year period, we create this model that shows where our gaps are. And what we've identified is the response time and the amount of calls occurring over in that the Spur, Golden Isles Parkway area and being serviced from the Ballard station is creating too far of a response time to ensure the public safety in an appropriate manner. But also it has the residual effect of when those units respond over to the Golden Isles Parkway area, now the Ballard Street area, and that immediate zone is now uncovered. So the next call that comes in has to come from another station, and now we're leaving this other station uncovered. So it has this rebound effect all over the county. That station right now is we're at about 18,000, 19,000 calls a year, which is our call volume is going up every single year, about somewhere right around 5% every single year. And, that station is responsible for about 6,500 of the 18,000 calls, right around 35% of the call volume out of there. So identifying the right piece of property and getting the station built is going to provide a great service, not just to the people around there, but we'll see more units available for the rest of the county to also provide that great service that we currently do.
Great, thank you, Chief. I think we're almost at the top of the hour. I don't see any other comments coming in from Facebook. Wanted to give you guys one last chance to make any last comments or before we wrap up.
Well, if I can, Laura, Bobby, I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and Lisa and Chief Benny and all the staff. We try to do a good job for people, and I want people to know that. And if you get on Facebook and you feel like you've got an issue, it's okay if you want to say the issue, but then come on down to the debate building and let us know. We'll sit down, and I've had a lot of people just come in my office and sit with me and talk with me and let me know what's going on and tell me the issue. If you don't tell me, if you just sit out there somewhere in the county and complain, and then I can't help you. But if you'll just take the time to come down, I mean, we really do. We'll listen to you and try to figure out what's going on and work with you to hopefully find a solution. We're people just like you that live here, and we want what's good for everybody. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys too, all three of you, for taking time on your Sunday evenings to talk to the public about this. I think most folks in Glenn County want local government that works for them, and they want these essential projects to happen, and they want information about how SPLOST works and how it's intended to work. So thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge. We're going to wrap up. I want to remind everybody that early voting starts tomorrow. you can go to, if you want to like do your research ahead of time, you can look at a sample ballot. You can go to mvp.sos.ga.gov, log in there. You can see exactly what's going to be on your ballot, all the races and the SPLOST question. You can also see where the early voting locations are, where your polling location is on November 8th. So we really want to encourage people to get out there and vote. One thing that I've noticed about SPLOST is it doesn't seem to fall along party lines. I know Republicans who are saying they're going to vote yes, and Republicans that are saying they're going to vote no, and Democrats that are saying they're going to vote yes, and Democrats that are saying they're going to vote no. So I think it's something that folks are really understanding that they need to understand the issue and figure out where they. I want to thank you guys for providing that information.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and go vote tomorrow.